My heart is in.
Alright, what's going on, you guys? I'm gonna do like a mid-year review of 2015, since we're halfway through the year and it's such a big year. So much had taken place. Usually, I do like a year-end review, and since there's so much that's taken place this year so far, I figure I'd do like a mid-year review. So I'm just gonna reminisce and talk about all the things that took place, all the things that we could expect, all the fighters to look out for, all the notable fights of the year. All of that's gonna be in this video. It's gonna be a lengthy video, so just sit back, chill. Let's start off with talking about Mayweather and Pacquiao. Finally took place. Okay, fight of the century, biggest pay-per-view numbers of all time by far. They made a lot of money. A lot of people spent a lot of money for this fight. A lot of people paid $100 for the pay-per-view itself. People spent thousands. I think the tickets when they first came out, the official tickets, they were minimum like $5,500. Okay, because I actually checked. I actually went out there that week, and I remember looking at the tickets when they first came out, and actually waited all the way to the week of to try to buy tickets. Okay. So anyway, the matchup was great. The matchup itself, it was a great matchup. I mean, people wanted this fight for 5 years. These are the top, most popular boxers in the sport. They're in the same division. They should have fought. They finally fought, and the fight didn't live up to the hype. Okay, it just didn't. And I expected it. I made videos about it. Stylistically, I think there's better fighters out there, or better fights that could be made with both fighters. And this fight didn't live up to the hype, and I didn't expect it to. I think people wanted to see like a Hearn-Hagler type of fight. You're not getting that. Not with these two, especially at this point in their career. If they fought when they were a little younger, it might have been a little bit more explosive. But at this point in their careers, the fight just wasn't that good. Okay, it was just an average fight, but we finally got it. At least we can lay that part of boxing to rest, because it seems like 50% of what everybody talks about in boxing, the debates and everything, had to do with Mayweather, had to do with Manny Pacquiao. It's over at this point. It's over. I mean, if they rematch it, then we could start it all up again, but the fight is over. I'm glad it came. Glad that we can focus more on the other things that's happening in the sport. Premier Boxing Champions, Al Heyman's series of boxing. Okay, he's taking over a lot of networks for this. Okay, we're getting boxing on network television. Spike TV, NBC, CBS, Fox Sports 1, ESPN, several more channels where we get free boxing. And I mean big fights, not just big championship fights, not just undercard type of fights. We're getting fights that we used to see on Showtime and HBO right on network television, okay, which is great. I personally like the idea. I like it. I think they've improved somewhat since the opening night of the fight, as far as the presentation and everything is concerned. Yeah, people complain. A lot of people feel that the fights haven't really delivered on there, but what can you do about the fight not delivering? I mean, can you really blame it on a promoter? The matchup between Danny Garcia and Lamont Peterson was great. It was a great matchup. It was a fight that should have happened. You had the two top fighters, championship fighters at 140 fighting each other, but the fight didn't deliver because of the way the fight played out. Okay, but the matchup itself was a great matchup. So was Keith Thurman against Robert Guerrero. So was Peter Quinlan and Andy Lee. So was Porter and Adrian Broner. So was DeGale and Darrell. These are plenty of fights that the matchups are good, top tier matchups in my opinion. Not all of the fights delivered to be great or whatever, but it's not the promoter's fault. At least we're getting it on free television. So in that sense, I have no problem with that. Another gripe that people have is the catchweights, and that's one of the things I wanted to speak on today. Catchweights are becoming more and more common in the sport of boxing. They're not going anywhere, like I've said. Um, I don't like every catch weight. Sometimes I'm not really, I really don't care for it because I think the fights are worth it. I would like to see the fights at the end of the day, catch weight or not. Sometimes I think the catch weights are a little bit more ridiculous, like Garcia and Peterson. You got two guys at 140. You have the lineal champ fighting another champ in the division, yet they're fighting 3 pounds over the weight limit, and it's not a unification match, which I think is ridiculous. Danny Garcia has finally moved up to 147 now, but didn't he fight over the weight limit for like the last 2 or 3 fights that he's had? And he's a champion, he's the lineal champion at the division, and he can't even make weight. I think that's a little ridiculous. This is why I did not attend the fight, because even though I thought it was a great matchup, I did not like the way that these guys were fighting, not fighting for a title. Okay, so I was a little disappointed in that. So in some certain circumstances, I dislike the catch weights. Okay, sometimes I really don't think they're all that bad, because at the end of the day, if we have every boxer were to turn down every catch weight that was offered to them, then we wouldn't get the fights we want to see, because catch weights is just a major part of the sport now. And if every fighter were to turn down, like Amir Khan turned down Adrian Broner's catch weight that he offered to Sean Porter, if every fighter turned down the catch weights, we wouldn't get the fights we want to see. Okay, so in that sense, I know that's going to be here. I don't think it's that bad if some fighters ask another fighter to meet them in the middle or whatever, but in certain circumstances, I do think the catch weights are ridiculous. It's just the way that it's negotiated or whatever. So moving on, Rock Nation becoming a major player in the sport. I think the more promoters, the better. At least we won't have any monopolies or no one completely controlling the sport of boxing. Rock Nation signed Miguel Cotto. Okay, Andre Ward is back. He's finally active after like a 2-year layoff. He's finally back. He came back for Paul Smith, not the fighter that people wanted him to see or wanted him to fight, but he's at least back in the game. Hopefully we get some of the bigger fights that we want to see, like Kovalev, Triple G's, James Higels, and whatever other top fighters at super middleweight. Okay, as far as Miguel Cotto, I'm glad they got Cotto. Daniel Gill, not the fighter that people wanted to see. I thought the catchweight was a little too much, especially Miguel Cotto. Being a lineal champion at middleweight, I think it's ridiculous that he had to make a guy come down 4 pounds below the weight limit when you're the lineal champion at middleweight. This is what I think is a little ridiculous. I think when guys are fighting in different divisions and they try to meet in the middle, I don't think it's too bad. But when fighters in the same divisions, have a catch weight of well over the weight division, and it's a championship fight, or would have been if it wasn't over the weight limit, or when a guy makes a guy at that division come all the way down 4 pounds to where he hasn't fought in those weights recently, yeah, I think you're literally draining that fighter. I think it's like cheating, in my opinion. Not saying that Miguel Cotto would have lost the fight, because I think he would have won regardless, but that's my whole point. Why have a catch weight? Just fight the guy as is. Fight the guy as he is at his best, because you're not going to get criticized, especially when people think you could beat the guy anyway. So we got Rock Nation. Let's continue. Let's wait and see what happens with them. SMS Promotions, okay, 50 Cents Promotions, all right. Seems like it's not going to be relevant for too much longer, all right. Gamboa already lost last year to Terrence Crawford. That was a big fight for him. He lost that fight. He's won a fight since then, but I don't know how relevant he's going to be at this point, especially since SMS 50 Cent filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy recently. Just don't know where the promoter is going from this point. Same with James Kirkland. James Kirkland lost, got knocked out by Canelo. He seems to want to get off SMS. I just don't know if SMS is going to be a player at this point in boxing. Okay. Um, Moving on. Now the heavyweight division is continuing to rise. I think the heavyweight division was pretty good last year. We got some big fights last year, and I think this year continued to, with that. We had a WBC champion, Deontay Wilder fight Bermane Stiverne. Well, Stiverne was the champion at the time. Wilder was the challenger. Wilder won. He's a new WBC champ. Thought it was a good fight. It was pretty entertaining to watch. We got an American champion again. And then Klitschko, he fought Jennings this year. Really wasn't a great fight, but Klitschko is fighting the top guys at the heavyweight division, and he's getting close to the end of his career, and he's still taking off big challenges at the heavyweight division. A lot of these undefeated guys are finally either losing their O's or stepping up in competition. You got the young guys like Anthony Joshua. He's still undefeated. He finally got his a bigger fight, for the guy that has been in the ring with Klitschko and knocked him out. So there's a lot going on in the heavyweight division. You got Povetkin. He's on a killing spree right now. The heavyweight division, by the end, I don't think this year, but by next year, we should definitely have an undisputed heavyweight champion. All right, but it's actually getting close to that point. All right. Carl Froch retired this year. It's been a rough year for him because it was no easy fights. I know he wanted the Chavez fight in Las Vegas. He's never fought in Las Vegas. As far as I'm concerned, I think that's what he said. He's never fought in Las Vegas, and he wanted the Chavez fight. Didn't get the fight. Ward came back. Ward wanted to fight. James Miguel wanted to fight. He ended up giving up his titles at super middleweight, Carl Froch. And, the Triple G was the last thing. I know Hopkins wanted to fight him too. Golovkin wanted to fight him. And Froch retired. Listen, like I said before, I don't think Froch is really going to retire. I think if something comes up where it's interesting, the money is right, the build-up is right, I think he'll come out of retirement. And I say within a year. I think he's going to entertain returning to the ring. All right. Now let's speak on some of the fighters. Roman Chocolatito Gonzalez, pound for pound fighter, right? That doesn't get the exposure. Finally got on HBO. He was on the undercard of Golovkin Monroe. So it's good to see a flyweight, a guy that, a lot of people don't watch boxing at the flyweight division. Outside of him, I honestly don't really watch it. And up to this point, I've only seen his fight on YouTube, okay? But it's good that HBO is trying to build him out there because he's definitely one of the pound for pound, arguably top 5 pound for pound fighter. The guy's like 43-0, and most of his wins are knockouts. Okay, so hopefully he continues to get more exposure. People will like him because of the knockouts, all right? And he has the technique to go along with it. So hopefully he gets more exposure. Some notable fights of the year. Kovalev Pacquiao was one of the better fights this year, in my personal opinion. It was an action slugfest between two top fighters at light heavyweight. Okay, Kovalev won the fight, but it was a great fight in my opinion. Probably fight of the year so far in my opinion, just based on what I could remember off top. Okay, you had Batista versus Provatnikov, a matchup that I've always wanted. I've always put out there on this channel. I also want to see Provatnikov against Brandon Rios. Hopefully we could get that fight. I went to Batista against Provatnikov. I thought it was a pretty good fight. Matisse won the majority of the rounds, but Provatnikov came back towards the end. It wasn't enough, but Matisse got the win. But, that was a good fight. You had Canelo against Kirkland, which was a pretty good fight for the 3 rounds that it lasted. Canelo dropped him a couple of times, but I thought Kirkland did have his half of each round up into the knockout. I thought Kirkland was doing his thing. You had Danny Garcia. Peterson already broke that down. Not a great fight, but it was a great matchup. It was a little disappointing. I already broke that down. I don't have to talk about that. You had Broner against Porter, a fight that was pretty good. I thought it was going to be a better fight, but I thought the matchup was great. You know, I thought it was a great matchup. It was good to see Broner finally really get in there with a guy that was dangerous for him. You know, outside of Maidana, a lot of people thought Maidana was just a tune-up match for Broner, a showcase match for Broner. But this is like the first fight that Broner really got into against a guy that people thought would beat him. Okay, and Porter actually won that fight. Thurman for Guerrero. I know the fight is not that valuable now because Guerrero hasn't looked good since that fight. He had one fight after that, and he got dropped in that fight. He looked pretty bad in that fight. A lot of people thought Guerrero lost the fight, but at the time, it was a huge step up for Keith Thurman. He fought a guy that's been in the ring with Floyd Mayweather. People don't care for the fight now because Thurman won the fight and he was dominant in the fight. But the matchup was a good matchup in my opinion. Two top 10 welterweights going at it. Okay, Thurman won the fight. Dropped Guerrero, looked good. Guerrero came back later in the fight, but that's because Thurman was fighting a really safe fight. The pressure was getting on him a little bit, but I think Thurman looked good in the fight. Chavez Jr. finally happened. Finally really got exposed. I mean, I think Sergio Martinez really exposed him, but since he knocked Sergio Martinez down, people were a little excited for that. You know, people thought that should have been a rematch. People thought that Chavez was going to win the fight because of the knockdown, but he gets destroyed by Fonfara. Alright, destroyed. Alright, he fought a guy that he didn't really have the big size advantage over, and he got destroyed. Me personally, I made a video about Chavez Jr. I don't know why, outside of his father, I don't know why people just think he's so good. I actually think Chavez has passed his prime. I think he was better at 160. I think he was much better. If you go and watch his most recent fights and go back to when he was fighting like Andy Lee or whatever, I think he was a much better fighter back then. And I think since he went up in weight, I think he's become slower. I just don't think he's as good as a fighter as he was when he was actually cutting the weight down to 160. All right. Khan versus Algieri. The funny thing about this fight is that this was the most hated fight of the year so far, especially on my channel. You guys heard my thoughts about it, but actually ended up being a really good fight. All right, Algieri came in and we saw an Algieri that we've never seen before, a very aggressive Chris Algieri. He gave Mir Khan hell. It was a war. It was a good fight. We saw some big shots from the both of them. Khan did win the fight. He did edge the fight. Some people thought Algieri won the fight. It was a very, very, very a very, very close fight, and competitive fight. That's what I meant to say. It was a very competitive fight. And you know what? I have a lot more respect for Chris Algieri because he showed you that he can actually bang, and he showed a different side of him. All right, I never seen him. I've seen him fight more than a few times, and I've never seen him fight that way before. It was a good fight. I think the fans and everybody, just totally dismissing him for this fight. I gave him a lot more heart. And he wanted to prove himself. Okay, he wanted to prove that he's one of the better fighters in those divisions. Okay, so I'm looking forward to seeing him fight again, honestly. But Khan, I still think Khan won that fight. All right. Andy Lee versus Peter Quillin. This is a fight that I really, really liked. I liked this fight, but a lot of people did not like this fight. I don't know why. You know what? I know why. Because the majority of the fight, they were standing in front of each other and not many punches were thrown because they were trying to set up traps and counter each other. But this is the reason why I like the fight. First of all, there was a lot of knockdowns, okay? A lot of clean punching, okay? A lot of big shots were landed, a lot of good counter punches, and there was no holding, okay? These guys, yes, they were standing in front of each other, but I don't think neither one of them held each other once in this fight. Like, both of these guys, when they landed, it was a clean shot. Okay, when they didn't land, it was just, they barely didn't land. Both of these guys were fighting a very technical fight. I loved the fight, me personally. Okay, I did like the fight. Unfortunately for Peter Quillin, he was overweight, so they didn't fight for the title. All right, but it was a very good fight. It was very close to call. I actually watched it again recently. Um, I enjoyed the fight. That's all I can say about that fight. Durrell brothers, both of them lost. Okay, Anthony Durrell lost to Badou Jack. Okay, Battle Jack outworked him. Shout out to Battle Jack. I did not think he had a chance of winning this fight. I actually thought he was going to get knocked out. Okay, but he won the fight. He did great. He has a fight against George Groves coming up. And then Andre Durrell versus Miguel. Such a good fight. Miguel has proven that he is one of the top fighters at super middleweight. I would love to see him fight Ward. He is a fighter. He's a guy that could give Ward a lot of problems. I would love to see that fight. 2 gold medalists. This fight, I don't know why we focus so much on the Triple G fight, that this fight here is a good fight in itself. Okay, I think Miguel is a serious, dangerous fighter for Andre Ward. I would love to see that fight. Okay. Moving on. Let's talk about some fighters. And I was gonna make a video on this before, a separate video. I just didn't get around to it. I know Fight Critic made a video on this. I was joking around with him because I wanted to do this video. Where are they now? A few fighters. I'm just gonna name a few fighters and where they're at now, because we just haven't heard from them. All right, haven't seen them. Marcos Maidana. What's happened to him? He seemed to just let himself go. He's gotten so fat off that Floyd Mayweather money. He got 2 fights with Floyd Mayweather in 1 year. He got paid more than he's ever been paid. Hopefully he gets back in the ring, because honestly, I think he's a great fight for anyone they decide to match him up with at 147. I still want to see him fight Thurman. I still want to see him fight Pacquiao. Okay, I would love to see these fights. Hopefully they take place. I don't know what's going to happen, but I would like to see Chino back in the ring soon, because I do think he's one of the top fighters at 147, and I still want him to fight all of these other top fighters at 147. So, Demetrius Andrade, everything's been going on. It's a mess with this kid. WBO is about to strip him of his title. He won his title 2 years ago and had only one defense of his title since then, and it wasn't even against the guy that people wanted to see him fight. Okay, so he turned down the Charlo fight. He turned down the fight with Matt Karabov. I know he didn't really know about it, but I thought it was an opportunity to go up there, get the WBO title at middleweight. Okay, it gives you more leverage for more fights that you could possibly be in. Now that you have a title at 160. Now people could try to fight you at 154 or 160. A lot of people do not want to fight him, but it would give him more leverage, in my opinion. I think he should have took that fight, and he definitely should have took the Charlo fight. And since then, it seems like he can't have a fight. Then he tried to fight Anthony Mundine. I think a couple of fights that tried to get made, it fell through. So I don't know what's up with Demetrius Andrade, but he's way too young to just be this inactive. Okay, I said him and Lara should fight. They keep saying that they want to fight each other, but they're not fighting each other. I don't know what's the problem with that. Mikey Garcia, what happened to him? What happened? Ever since this lawsuit with Top Rank, he's just been on the shelf. He hasn't been fighting at all. Listen, man, he was like HBO's future star. Now Terrence Crawford is that, but this is a guy that they were thinking about putting against Manny Pacquiao, and he was undefeated. He had knockouts, good KO ratio, and then he just disappeared. It's just done. Every time I see him, he's doing an interview in the gym, and I'm just like, what happened? All right, so and one thing, I hope we see Guillermo Rigondeaux back in the ring. We haven't seen him in 2015 yet. Hopefully we get to see him. He's not like missing like the other 3, but it's 2015 and he's not scheduled for a fight yet. So hopefully, gets out of this last contract, goes to Al Heyman or someone that could get him fights. And, hopefully we get to see him back in the ring soon. All right, we're seeing, I made a video on Lomachenko. Hopefully that fight take place, but we just need to get him back in the ring. All right. All right, so before I end, just going to name some notable fighters that you should be on the lookout for. Amir Imam. All right, if you don't know now, you know he's a top fighter at 140. He's about to get into he's Don King. He's promoted by Don King. All right, young kid. You know, good knockout ratio. Good fighter. You know, very explosive. Look out for him. Eric Lubin. Look out for him. Another fighter. I think he's at 154. He's on the come up. Look out for him. Naoya Inoue, the Japanese fighter. He's not a prospect. He's already a two-time champ. He's at super flyweight. Okay, another guy like Roman Gonzalez that is in the weight divisions that most people don't know about, but I seen him fight on YouTube and stuff. Definitely check his fights out. Travell Mazion, I think. Black Magic is his nickname. A guy that's at 154. I've seen him fight on ESPN. He's on the come up. Check him out, undefeated young fighter. Joseph Parker, I made a video on him recently with him and Anthony Joshua, and Dillian White. All right, fighter from the Netherlands, heavyweight, great hand speed. He actually has a fight this week, I believe, against Bowie Topu. That should be a good fight. I actually meant to do a video on that fight. He's fighting Bowie Topu, guy with big power. Okay, a guy that I think he's gonna knock out, but you know, kind of dangerous. I remember he put Brian Jennings on the floor. So Joseph Parker, another fighter to be on the lookout for. He's good heavyweight, big heavyweight, but good hand speed. Marcus Brown for super middleweight. No, not light heavyweight. Okay. I know a lot of people are focused on Artur Beterbiev right now, but this is another light heavyweight you should be on the lookout for. Undefeated heavyweight from New York, Staten Island, I think. Be on the lookout for him. He's good. I seen him fight live. He's a pretty good fighter. And Jesse Hart, all right, super middleweight, trying to get a big fight. You know, he's undefeated. He's been fighting, you know, good fighters, but we're ready to see him step up. But be on the lookout for him, Jesse Hart too. And that's it. You know, that's my mid-year review. I would like you guys to leave comments. You know, anything that I left out that happened this year, any big fights you want to bring up, any fighters that you want to, you know, want me to be on the lookout for, put them in the comments. Anything that's happened this year in 2015 that you want to bring up and talk on, bring it up and leave it in the comments. And make sure you guys subscribe. Peace.